Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni, the 98th verse from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel TN Thai in the USA. Whether in village or in forest, in vale or on hill, wherever arahants dwell, delightful, indeed, is that spot. When these words arise from the ancient teachings, they carry with them a fragrance of calmness, a fragrance of purity, and a fragrance of liberation that spreads through the heart like a soft breeze. The Buddha is not speaking of ordinary places. He is speaking of the atmosphere created by those who have freed their minds from greed, hatred, and delusion. Wherever an arahant resides, even if the surroundings appear simple or remote, that place becomes luminous with peace. The Dhamma flows there like a gentle river. The mind becomes light. The heart becomes open. In such a place, the whispers of craving fall silent. The burdens of worry dissolve. Even the trees and stones seem to radiate serenity when touched by the presence of awakened beings. This verse invites us to understand why such places are delightful, not because of scenery alone, but because a liberated heart transforms its environment. In the story connected with this verse, the Buddha speaks about the elder arahants who wandered freely through forests and mountains. The scriptures tell us that ordinary people sometimes feared the wilderness, believing it full of spirits and dangers. But the arahants saw the forest not as frightening, but as peaceful. They saw the mountains not as obstacles, but as friends. They saw the valleys not as lonely, but as comforting. Why? Because the mind of an arahant is without fear. It is without longing. It is without agitation. The Buddha explained that when the heart is free, even a remote forest becomes delightful. And when the heart is bound by desire and confusion, even a bustling city becomes a place of distress. Therefore, the delight spoken of in this verse arises from the quality of mind present there. When the mind is pure, the place becomes pure. When the mind is peaceful, the world becomes peaceful. This is the gentle truth the Buddha offers us. The Buddha once stayed at a forest grove that villagers considered haunted. They avoided it, fearing invisible beings. Yet when the Buddha arrived, he sat calmly beneath the trees. The scriptures recount that the spirits living there, who had been uneasy and restless, became calm in his presence. Their minds softened. Their agitation melted. They offered respect to the Buddha and allowed the grove to become a sanctuary of practice. The villagers were astonished that a place once feared had become a place of refuge. This transformation happened not by force, but by the presence of awakened wisdom. Such is the power of purity. Such is the power of compassion. Wherever the enlightened dwell, peace arises naturally. An arahant carries no cravings, no illusions, no selfish desires. Their hearts are like clear pools of water reflecting the truth of the world without distortion. This clarity affects everything around them. Even animals sense their compassion. Even trees seem to sway with gentleness. The world around an arahant becomes a teaching in itself. Anyone who enters such a place begins to feel the stillness, even if they do not understand it intellectually. The Dhamma speaks through silence, through softness, through the quiet radiance of a liberated heart. When we contemplate this verse, we are invited to reflect on the importance of inner transformation. The Buddha reminds us that a delightful place is not created by material comfort alone, but by the atmosphere of wisdom and kindness. Let us imagine walking into a monastery where great practitioners have lived. The air feels lighter. The mind settles more quickly. A calm arises effortlessly. This is not imagination. It is the natural influence of wholesome energy accumulated over years of practice. When the Buddha says delightful, indeed, is that spot, he is pointing to the beauty of purity, the beauty of freedom, the beauty of minds that have gone beyond suffering. This delight is gentle. It is deep. It is peaceful. It does not excite the senses, but soothes the heart. It does not stir desire but invites contemplation. It does not create restlessness but nurtures inner stillness. Such delight is the nourishment we seek on the spiritual path. The presence of arahants teaches without words. Their stillness becomes guidance. Their compassion becomes a lamp. Their freedom becomes inspiration. Just as a lotus blooms untouched by the mud around it, the arahant lives in the world without being stained by it. Their presence uplifts the place they dwell in. It uplifts the people they meet. It uplifts the animals, the trees, the wind, and even the unseen beings. When the Buddha recited this verse, he was also reminding us that we too can make our surroundings delightful by purifying our own hearts. We may not yet be arahants, but every moment of mindfulness, every act of kindness, every letting go of craving creates a little more peace within us, and this peace radiates outward. Therefore, let us understand deeply that the delight described here is the delight of liberation. It is the delight of truth. It is the delight of living in harmony with the Dhamma. It is a delight untouched by external conditions. It arises from the heart. It spreads through the world. It blesses the places where awakened beings rest. As we listen to this verse, may we open our own hearts to this peace. May we appreciate the beauty of inner stillness. And may we walk slowly, gently, and mindfully toward that purity which makes every place delightful. When we enter the meaning of this verse more deeply, our hearts begin to understand why the presence of awakened beings brings peace to any place they inhabit. The Buddha is revealing a truth that does not depend on scenery or geography. It depends on the quality of the heart. A place becomes delightful when it is touched by minds that are pure, minds that are free, minds that have walked the noble path to its end. When an arahant sits in meditation beneath a simple tree, that tree becomes a witness to liberation. When an arahant walks along a dusty path, that path becomes blessed by the footsteps of one who carries no burden of craving. When an arahant rests for the night in a humble hut, that hut becomes a sanctuary. The delight of such a place is not created by external beauty. It is created by the presence of a mind that has gone beyond all suffering. This is why the Buddha said that wherever arahants dwell, the place becomes joyful. In the ancient scriptures, we find stories of forests that once frightened travelers, dark groves where people heard strange sounds, valleys where villagers believed spirits roamed, mountains considered too remote to enter. Yet when awakened disciples practiced there, the entire atmosphere changed. One story tells of the elder Ravada who preferred solitude. He chose to live deep within a forest where no one dared to visit. The people called that forest the Whispering Wood because the wind made sounds that frightened them. But Ravada entered without fear. His mind was serene. His conduct was gentle. His meditation was steady. As he practiced there, the forest became peaceful. Animals approached him without hostility. Spirits that once troubled the land became calm. Villagers later reported that the entire region felt softer, lighter, blessed. This is the delight the Buddha speaks of, a delight that arises from the presence of wisdom. Another scripture tells of a group of monks who sought a place to meditate. They entered a valley that was so quiet that they felt uneasy. But their teacher, an arahant named Mahakassapa, assured them that the silence was a gift. He explained that when the mind is restless, silence feels heavy. But when the mind is still, silence becomes nourishment. Under his guidance, those monks transformed their fear into joy. They practiced there for the entire rainy season. By the end of that retreat, the valley had become a place of deep calm. Even long after the monks departed, people who visited the valley felt a sense of peace that lingered like a gentle fragrance. Such stories show that the presence of awakened beings does not merely decorate a place. It transforms it from within. The Buddha often reminded his disciples that the mind is the creator of worlds. When the mind is agitated, even a lovely place becomes uncomfortable. When the mind is peaceful, even a simple hut becomes a palace of serene joy. The delight mentioned in the verse is therefore not dependent on flowers or streams or mountain views. It is the delight found in purity. It is the delight found in compassion. It is the delight found in a mind undefiled. Arahants carry purity wherever they go. Their presence is like a soft rain that nourishes all beings. It soothes suffering. It calms fear. It opens the heart. Even without speaking a single word, their mere presence teaches the Dhamma. There is a story of the Buddha visiting a village where conflict had been rising. People were arguing. Families were divided. Neighbors were filled with resentment. The Buddha walked into the center of the village quietly. The scriptures say that as he stood there, the villagers felt their anger easing. They approached him slowly. They listened to him speak. His words were simple, gentle, filled with compassion. When he left, people found themselves unwilling to continue fighting. They sat together. They apologized. They shared food. They restored harmony. The villagers later said that the place seemed brighter after the Buddha visited. They felt as if a weight had lifted from their hearts. This is the delight of being near the awakened ones. Not because they demand change, but because their purity awakens the purity in others. Their peace invites peace. When an arahant dwells somewhere, the environment becomes a teacher. The stillness of the awakened mind becomes a mirror in which others can see their own agitation. The compassion of the awakened heart becomes a reminder of the kindness that lies within everyone. The freedom of the awakened life becomes a testimony to what is possible. This is why the Buddha praises any place where the awakened reside. Such a place becomes a living Dharma hall, a sanctuary where the heart is nourished without effort. The very air seems softer. The very light seems clearer. The very ground seems blessed. Not because of external magic, but because purity radiates in all directions. Let us reflect on the meaning of delight in the spiritual journey. This delight is not excitement. It is not entertainment. It is not pleasure that fades. It is the delight of a calm mind, the delight of a heart without regret, the delight of wisdom, touching the world gently. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to taste a fraction of this delight. When we cultivate compassion, we begin to sense the sweetness of it. When we let go of clinging, even briefly, we feel the spaciousness of this freedom. The presence of arahants magnifies this feeling. Their purity becomes a living example of what the path can lead to. Their calm inspires humility. Their joy inspires devotion. Their freedom inspires aspiration. The Buddha offered this verse to remind us that the spiritual path is not about finding beautiful places. It is about creating beauty within. When inner beauty is perfected, outer beauty naturally appears. When inner peace is cultivated, outer peace follows. When inner liberation is reached, outer delight blossoms. The arahants are mirrors showing us our own potential. Their presence in villages, forests, hills, and valleys shows that liberation is not tied to a particular location. Liberation can shine anywhere. Peace can bloom anywhere. Wisdom can flourish anywhere. Therefore, wherever awakened beings dwell becomes delightful, because their hearts illuminate the world around them. May we honor this teaching by cultivating purity in our daily lives, by practicing mindfulness with sincerity, by nurturing compassion with gentleness, by letting go of craving with patience. May our minds become places where peace can dwell. May our hearts become fields where kindness grows. And may we walk the path that leads to the same freedom that transforms any place into a sanctuary of delight. We turn our attention to the inner architecture of equanimity, the profound stillness that arises not from suppression, nor from avoiding life, but from penetrating reality as it truly is. A mind that is calm because it avoids challenges is still fragile. A mind that is calm because it sees through the nature of challenges, that mind is unshakable. This is what the Buddha refers to as the state of one who is wholly freed, perfectly peaceful, and equipoised. To be equipoised is not to be numb, indifferent, or lethargic. It is to be fully awake, fully present, yet untouched by the winds of craving and hatred. Just as a mountain does not lean when storms beat upon it, the mind of the fully awakened one remains steady, upright, natural. Equanimity is often misunderstood as passivity, but in the Dhammapada it is presented as an active clarity, a wisdom-born stability. It is the serenity that emerges when the mind has exhausted the fuel that binds it to reaction. When one has discerned the impermanence of all formations, sounds, thoughts, sensations, emotions, then nothing can deceive or enslave him any longer. Praise does not intoxicate. Blame does not wound. Gain does not inflate. Loss does not devastate. Pleasure does not blind. Pain does not embitter. He sees all things rise and fall like ripples on a vast ocean, and seeing this, he dwells in unshakable peace. The Buddha's statement that calm is his mind, calm is his speech, calm is his action, beautifully reveals that enlightenment is not an inner feeling alone. It radiates outward as conduct, intention, and presence. A serene mind produces serene speech. Chaotic speech reveals a chaotic mind. Likewise, the actions of one who has understood reality carry no traces of anxiety, ambition, or egoic desperation. His steps are measured, his choices intentional, and his presence naturally brings reassurance to others. This is why such a person is called perfectly peaceful, not because he hides from the world, but because he has nothing left to defend in the world. This paragraph closes by emphasizing that the culmination of the path is not merely moral refinement or temporary concentration, but liberation, a final freedom from the compulsive cycle of becoming. This liberation is not something that must be believed. It is something to be realized. It is the flowering of wisdom and the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. When the Buddha speaks of one who is rightly knowing, he refers to a knowledge that is experiential, transformative, and irreversible. Such knowing brings an end to agitation and the dawn of a peace that is not dependent on conditions. This is the peace that the verse celebrates, a peace that is stable, luminous, and boundless, belonging entirely to the one who has walked the noble path to its completion. The essence of the Buddha's message in this verse, the calmness of the enlightened one, is not an ornament, not a quality cultivated for display, but the natural fruit of liberation. The mind is calm because it no longer clings. Speech is calm because it no longer seeks to wound or impress. Action is calm because it is no longer driven by fear, desire, or confusion. This threefold calm, mind, speech, and body, is the unmistakable signature of freedom. For us as practitioners, walking the path, this verse serves as both a mirror and a compass. A mirror, because when we examine our own lives, our conversations, reactions, and choices, we see how far or near we are to such. Calmness. A compass, because it points directly toward the heart of practice, understanding things as they truly are, letting go of the burdens we carry, and cultivating the wisdom that brings unshakable peace. The Buddha never demanded blind faith. He invited us to verify the truth through experience. When we observe the turmoil that arises from clinging and the serenity that arises from letting go, we begin to understand the meaning of rightly knowing. The verse reminds us that liberation is not a distant ideal reserved for saints of the past. It is a living possibility, a reality accessible through sincere practice. Each moment of mindfulness, each act of kindness, each time we restrain an unwholesome impulse, we take one step closer to that tranquility described by the Buddha. The calmness of the liberated one is not abrupt. It is the maturation of countless moments of clarity and effort. Just as a lotus rises gradually through the water before it blooms in the sunlight, our minds gradually purify through effort, understanding, and ethical living until full awakening becomes possible. Let this teaching inspire us not to seek calm as an escape, but as a natural expression of wisdom. Let it encourage us to observe our minds with honesty, to speak with gentleness, and to act with compassion. Let it strengthen our resolve to cultivate the path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These 8 factors are not separate practices, but a single path, leading to the serenity described in this verse. May we all, through diligence and understanding, move closer to that profound stillness. May our minds grow lighter, our hearts softer, and our actions more harmonized with truth. And may the calmness praised by the Buddha become not merely an idea we admire, but a lived reality in our own lives, for the benefit of ourselves, for the peace of others, and for the welfare of all beings.